And away we go.
And we decided, kind of cycling back on our rant about Taylor Swift. We're not actually bringing up Taylor Swift, except insofar as she is a billionaire, and Billie Eilish, who we kind of have a little bit more respect for artistically. That's not the point, though. Went on a big rant against billionaires, basically saying, why do we need billionaires? Why do you need to be a billionaire? Why does anybody need that much money? Why, if you are able to acquire that much money, did you not pay people along your way to get there, or give it away after you got it, or whatever? I mean, just I can understand if you're, somebody like Bill Gates, like Michael Dell, whatever, why your company would want to have X billions of dollars because they purchase those other companies, whatever. But as an individual, why does any one person need that much fucking money?
Right. So what happened was the Wall Street Journal had some kind of award ceremony, and she won some kind of artistic award, and I'm not sure exactly what the title of that award was, but she had won some award, and she went up in front of the audience, and it wasn't a big long diatribe. She just essentially said, I'd like to thank you, but no hate, but if you're a billion, there's a lot of people in this room who have a lot more money than I do, and if you're a billionaire, why are you a billionaire? Basically saying it's gross. That's cringe. Being a billionaire is cringe, and it should be cringe. And like you said, if it's, individual wealth, that's even more cringe. But even as a corporation, you should be investing back into and paying your employees, and that's not individual wealth. And as far as buying up other companies, that's just monopolization, and that's not even really like being a good capitalist. So, well,
in this America, it kind of is typical, though.
But you understand my point.
I get your point.
There's don't buy up other companies, build a better product. So go into put that money into research. So the point being is that being a billionaire is fucking cringe. It is absolutely cringe on so many different levels. The what, the why, it could, like you said, could be why were you able to acquire that much wealth? Because in the answer to that question, you did shit that was exploitative, monopolization, cutting and undermining people, not paying them enough, not being a good citizen. Secondly, the why is, why do you need that as a person, that much money? What is wrong with your ego? What is wrong with your psyche? What kind of sick fuck are you when you can see? I think she prefaced all of this by saying there's a lot of hurt and pain and suffering going on in the world today. And if you're a billionaire, why? Why do you find it necessary? But like I said, this all stems from the sick society, the selfish and greediness that we've instilled as the human default. We've been programmed. The human default is actually, through evolution, been about cooperation, kindness, understanding, and the highest form of consciousness developed by humans is empathy. But we've been co-opted and colonized by psychopaths for thousands of years. In any kind of small group or anything, since, hunter-gatherers developed into little, communities of agriculture and these other things, and started to develop as cities and things, people that were the biggest bullies, the biggest liars, the biggest manipulators, were able to coerce people out of their own self-interest. But this is a bug. This is not... But what we've been taught for centuries is that this is the default human condition. And then when we have these reactions against it, we're told that we're the sick ones, that we're the ones who are having a malfunction, when all it is the system is being malfunctioned by a small bug. Maybe, there's probably 10% of the population that are psychopath or narcissistic clinical psychopaths, 2 to 10%, but they run everything. They run everything, and so what ends up happening is individuals that are under this, 2 things can happen. One is it's pathologized as they become narcissistic themselves as a defense mechanism against this tyranny, or, it's sort of a self-defense thing, but then the guilt and the blame starts to get developed internally, right? So they think that they're the issue, and they just must work harder, they must obey better, or other things that just become cogs so that they feel like they're part of the system, The second other thing is, if I can't beat them or join them, I know I'm being a fucking psychopath, but I don't care because that's the way I want to be in line with this. Those are the people who generally move up. If you worked in a corporate structure or anything else, right? A religious cult or anything. It's the proximity to the power that gets you more powerful, right? So you're as sick as the sickos. Or even if you somehow are still having this crisis of conscience, like you're dismissing it because you're trying to get ahead, right? Whereas most individuals are having a crisis of conscience all the time, and that's why you have so much anxiety and all these different ailments, throughout human history. That's just been propagated time and time and time and time again. So this whole structure is developed into this trauma bond with a psychosis. So, so the default human, that is actually what helps us, in spite of these powerful people who say that they're the reason that we, I've been able to achieve these grand things in societies, is simply not true. The reason we've been able to do this is through the cooperation, kindness, and the community aspect of the human consciousness.
Sometimes manifesting through government.
Sometimes in social democracies.
Right.
And democratic social democracies. But they're always being infiltrated by these psychopaths who want you to convince you that you're the problem if you don't fall in line with these hierarchies and the patriarchies, right? That they've developed, their religion, co-opting religion as part of their, psychosis that they've incorporated and colonized everyone's brains with, and actually traumatized them into these trauma bonds and these belief systems. And that if they tried to veer away from it, you're being antisocial. When actually you're the one being social, they're the antisocial ones. You're trying to gain some social, agency. So it's a twisted reality that we've kind of dealt with for quite a long time. And, it's just extremely evident in the colonization of the Americas, and this is at an industrial scale in Central, South, and North America, and using religion as kind of the, this is a God-given thing, these hierarchies, the patriarchies of the white superiority over all these different populations. And then they colonized the minds of the people who did survive the genocides and the slavery, and they colonized them with their religion as well. So now, as people are becoming awake and aware of what's happening, and they're breaking free of this matrix, if you want to call it that, we're starting to see, what happened it happened during the Enlightenment to some extent, and then, you had the existential and philosophers and stuff that moved on to like existential humanism, and then, you're having that in the 60s, and it didn't stick, but now it's coming back again, because of Trump. And I'm thinking that there's enough information out there, there's enough people that it's going to have a bigger impact. I think more people are awake than ever. And more people are waking up to the systems of abuse and tyranny. So, so the question about why a billionaire, like, why are you a billionaire? And this should become the question all the time. And it shouldn't, like, we have been taught that being a billionaire is cool somehow. Like, somehow wealth equates with goodness and poverty equates with badness. So that's why when you talk to, like we said in the last episode, when you talk about people that are poor, they automatically assume evil. So the poor gets blamed because of their inability to be a good human. Like, you cannot be poor and a good human simultaneously.
Sorry, I just realized something, and tell me if you've already realized this, because you probably have. But the existence of billionaires in and of itself disproves trickle-down theory.
Yes.
Because if it was trickling down, they wouldn't have that much money. Now, they might have 999 million, but you wouldn't have that billion if it was trickling down.
Exactly, and you wouldn't have the wealth gap disparity.
Right.
You wouldn't have the increase in productivity and decrease in wage. You wouldn't have the stagnant wage and the increase in CEO and shareholder wage. So yeah, I mean, it's so obvious. It's so obvious. Right. It's becoming so obvious they can't even hide it anymore. And anybody who's still believing it, like we said, they're in a literal alternate reality, because the evidence is so clear what is happening and how it's been happening for thousands of years. In any civilization where these people that decided to call themselves kings since the beginning of time, that recorded history that we understand, so this is where we're at, as humans. And I believe not everyone's good. True. And not everyone's good and people are good at different levels, and like I said, some things are subjective, and sometimes you got to really look. Doing the right thing is hard, right? But it's not as hard sometimes as knowing what the right thing to do is. And that can be really dicey and tricky. And people want to make that so black and white across the board, especially these Republicans. Everything's so black and white.
The irony that is that within the Trump administration, most of what they're doing is pretty wrong.
Right. I mean,
but
you understand my,
I get
my
your
position
point,
with that. They're black and white thinking. And certainly there's going to be certain things that are pretty fucking clear that they're wrong.
Like don't starve people.
Yeah, for any reason.
And it's
so, but that's my point. They've sucked the empathy out of human beings, right? And being a billionaire just proves you don't have empathy. And that question, I think, was presented. Look, she didn't go on a long diatribe. She didn't go explain shit like.
She didn't point fingers or name names or any of that shit.
All she did was present the simple question that you can sit and ponder if you're a billionaire or not a billionaire. Why?
Well, because as I put it, $1 million, granted, isn't as much as a lot of people think. But $1 billion is a fuckload more than most people realize.
And let's put it, and she gave away 11 million, right?
Yeah.
I think her net worth is under 50 million. Now, here's a woman who probably easily could have gained $1 billion like Taylor Swift, but didn't. Chose not to for whatever reason. I don't know if it's because she's paying or giving away a lot of money. She gave away 11 million just recently. That's a quarter of her wealth. And she never even generated tremendous amounts of wealth. I mean, her wealth is maybe generational for a generation. That's it. I mean, it sounds like a lot, but 50 million today is not 50 million of even 20 years ago.
Right. But
it's
part
like
of the point
10
is that any billionaire who claims that, I'm being generous or I'm whatever, they're giving away, let me put it this way. When I drive down the street, I have a dollar bill in my pocket. And if I see somebody on the street, I give them the dollar bill, literally the dollar bill.
Yeah.
As a percentage of my wealth, a billionaire tends to give away less of their wealth than that dollar bill out of my pocket.
Yes.
Yeah.
They don't give pennies away.
Yeah.
Even when they're giving millions. So I don't think people understand what $1 billion is either. How insanely ridiculous that is, even compared to 50 million. So, like I said, here's this, and she's a woman, I don't know, young lady.
Yeah, she's
now.
like in mid-20s, early 30s, something like that.
I think she's in her mid-20s.
Yeah,
I don't know,
mid to late 20s.
Early 20s still? I don't know. Time goes by weird.
Yeah.
But anyways, she's not a kid anymore. She's an adult enough to know that being a billionaire is fucking sick and cringe. And it's not a measure of intelligence or being of goodness. I think people are realizing this, hopefully more and more and more. That just because you make a lot of money doesn't make you smart or wise or anything besides a fucking jerk. And, like I said, this is a person that probably could have generated $1 billion if she chose. Like
if she had switched her trajectory and said, that's my goal. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And that goes back to the Taylor Swift. I don't want to bring that in too much, but when all that shit went down, her response was, if you're talking about it, you're helping. So the question becomes, helping what?
And she stopped talking about it too. So
right. If you're helping what? So we're helping you make more money, which means you're more
capable.
Which means two things. Because then she shut up. Two things. One is you're only concerned about money because it's helping you make more money, right? You're only helping. Yes, helping you make more money because it's generating more publicity, right? Two, you are not concerned with the accusations. Any other individual who emotionally mature individual would say, look, I'm sorry it was taken that way. That's not what I meant. And try to explain it if there was a legitimate explanation. But there is none. There's no explanation to talk away some of the most egregious insults against her, which are, this is Nazi shit and racist.
Yeah.
Like you would think someone would address that and be like, oh, look, man, it was a mistake. They did this. I didn't have anything. I didn't say okay on that. We stopped selling it. My bad. No.
She didn't even do that.
All she said was, you're helping.
What?
Yeah. If you're talking about it, you're helping.
No, you're not.
You're helping her make money.
Right. But you're not necessarily helping a particular cause or side or issue. If that's all, your point is correct. You're helping her make money, but are you doing anything beyond that? I mean, it's kind of like the point.
That's the answer to the question. You're helping her make money,
but that's it.
That's it. And secondly, she doesn't care. She doesn't care about the accusation.
Well, as I put it, does she have enough? Does she actually have a significant influence over, the girls and their parents and some of the 20-somethings and whatever that are her fan base? Maybe. And if so, and she had tried to actually exert that influence more, we might not have Trump as president right now.
Possibly.
Possibly.
I don't know.
But my point is, she didn't actually try and pull that lever very hard.
Here's the thing. I'm going to go back to her. I don't like it,
Yeah,
but I'm going to have to, because this is indicative of all of this shit. And she's a pipeline to this white supremacy, this mediocrity. And the weird part of it is, it's the abuser style. It's not overt. It's very covert. She punches down in all cases. Here she is pretending like she's, oh, this little delicate person who's like getting hurt all the time, while she's always punching down on her exes, always punching down on other artists who are not up on top like her. The minute she gets punched from above, did she punch up? No. Trump went after her. Musk went after her, and she did nothing. But the minute Trump said she was hated her. I hate you, Taylor.
Yeah.
And she said nothing. Somebody says one little thing slight that might have been a slight towards it, and she goes off. She went off a couple times on some people for whatever reason, because she's very insecure and jealous. But she's punching down once again. So that says everything about her, everything that needs to be known about her. She punches down. She doesn't punch up because she wants to be proximity, and she doesn't want to piss off power. She's a billionaire.
You played me some of those videos of her trying to write music, and it was scary.
Well, that's another thing. And then she's a billionaire. She punches down, not up. She, she's horrible, and she doesn't even try to explain away some of the most egregious things. And her latest album is her mask is off, and she's just what they call that, a trad wife.
Yeah.
And that's all she's ever been, the cheerleader who got the guitar. So, Billie Eilish, yeah. I've always liked her music. I don't know why. It's kind of like weird that I'm an adult man and I'm like, hey, that's pretty cool. But you have to also remember her brother is very, very talented. And he wrote a lot of the music part of that stuff. She wrote some of the lyrics. And he's an extremely talented musician. And those songs are poppy and interesting. And they're a lot deeper than Taylor Swift songs. They're not just about, some of them are relationships, not granted, and things like that. But
which isn't inherently a bad thing.
No, it isn't inherently a bad thing. And I think she just has a little more depth to her in a lot of different ways. And I think she's a little more clued in to,
Oh, that's how she makes some of her money. I mean, that's insane.
Ticket cost, yeah. So, I mean, the bottom line being, I'm not sitting here trying to make this comparison between Taylor Swift and Billie Eilish, even though it was done in this video. The movie was more about billionaires and why are there billionaires, and the insidious nature of being a billionaire. And in this day and age, that we shouldn't be idolizing billionaires or thinking it's a flex to have a lot of billionaires in this country, when actually it's to the detriment of society. And I just think it was very interesting that at least we have one clued-in individual who has some influence, probably could have just as much influence as Taylor Swift, who's not even close to a billionaire, gave away a quarter of her wealth, was not able to generate that much money because she's not ruthless and cruel. And there's an individual who was accused of being a Nazi and a racist who just said, you're helping. So there we have the two sides. You see what's going on here, and you can see that, hopefully in the future, as people start to become more and more awake of how these systems work, more and more young adults will start to realize that being a billionaire is fucking cringe.